going to be elementary 19 and beyond. So Tim, why don't you take us through it, please?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank y'all. We're gonna go through a couple of things here. One, I'm gonna walk you through kind of the timeline. I think most of you walked up here at least got to experience a little bit, read a little bit. So I'll kind of walk you through the process we've gone through. We've got some video clips to show you of students, of some engagement back at the Huckabee office. And then when we get to the end, we have the big reveal. So we're not, who is it, Joanne and Chip? We don't have the big boards that you can cross, but we do have boards that will flip around and show you where we are in the process. So just know we've done a lot of work since August 11th. I mean, that's when we started. We hit play on this process in August 11th. A couple of things about this timeline. Everything below the line in gray was student or teacher engagement or administrator engagement. Everything above the line in white meant that was either Huckabee, and you can see the kind of 3 red Huckabee squares. That was their true kind of internal process. And everything else in the gray boxes was involving the 12-person design team that's the design team to lead the process. So just kind of starting back at the first, we had a kickoff meeting of the design team, the team of 12 back in Huckabee's office. You can see the faces and the players who are on that team. We went through a lot of different questions about what does this project need to be successful and those type of things. That gave us opportunity to go write our answers on the board. Everything we did was a consumable for them and during their process. Moving on, they went and visited the Harvest community to kind of make sure they understood the feel of that community, because that is where the number 19 site will be, even though we'll place this a few more times as a prototype, but they did that. They took us on a series of tours. We went to Dripping Spring, we went to Pearl Elementary School, and we went to the Thinkery, all in around the Austin area, really to kind of just engage us in some conversational elements about what did you see, what did you experience, what did you like, what are the components you like about it, what did you not like, what were the things you would do or you would modify, what were the things you wouldn't do or modify. And so it really just started that process of us not just talking about it like we did in the first step about kind of the success measures, but now visualizing some of those elements to say what type of elements are those that we would want in our elementary school as we look to move forward. About that time, we got back from the design teams. It's about the time that Huckabee really started engaging our faculty and staff and teachers and students. I want to make a quick introduction, and that's Rebecca Carranza at the back there. Rebecca was leading that effort for Huckabee. Her and Sarah set in countless hours of interviews, discussions, observations with all this group down here. I would float in and out as my time allowed me. But Rebecca became our clearinghouse. We've nicknamed her the people's voice. And she's responsible for all the voices that she heard and all the data that she gathered to make sure that we as a design team of 12 for the district understood what those comments were coming back. So that started here. We had departmental meetings. Those happened here. We're moving people in and out. We did a heck of a job. I really would like to tell you we engaged every elementary school. We actually missed one, because a person was supposed to come and they couldn't make it that day. And they were a department leader for one of the, I think they were grade level, 2nd grade, thank you, from one elementary. But other than that, we engaged someone from every elementary campus, which is tough to do when you got 17 campuses. So in some shape or fashion, alongside the help of Dr. Griffin, there she is, thank you, Dr. Griffin, we sat down and kind of went through that list and said, okay, where are we missing a group? And let's plug in this group of students here or this group of teachers here. So went through that process, met with the different grade levels, met with the different department groups to understand what they would like in an ideal world of an elementary school. Listened to all that. We then got into a process where the Huckabee team went and toured Schluter and Eaton High School because, one, we had referenced those two quite a bit. We said, well, like at Eaton and like at Schluter and this and that. And so they said, okay, well, we should probably go consume those buildings just like we consumed the Harvest community, and let us go visit that. So they went on a tour there and walked those facilities and got to see the spaces that we had at those facilities. With a big part of that engagement really focused on Eaton. With Eaton and now with Adams coming online across the street, the collaboration spaces, what we're doing at those secondary levels of education really drove the conversation about, okay, now how do we even get down further to that elementary level and start to bring kids up in that environment from an elementary school level. Environment of collaboration, environment of flexible seating and open spaces and engagement beyond just the four walls of the classroom. So then we sent out some surveys. We see to the 4th and 5th graders, and we got a bunch of comments back there. I think this is the one. This is the one where it says, I like my building. What do you not like about your building? It says that it doesn't have stories, like, not like the ones in books, like the stories in buildings. So they wanted multiple stories. I thought that was funny. But we started hearing this conversation of all this engagement. We went on an interview 1st and 2nd and 3rd graders. That's coming up. While we were having these discussions from the responses from the surveys, we started our first true charrette process, which is kind of the really kind of starting to turn the pages and starting to put some ink to paper about spatial relationships. We talked about the characteristics of the buildings, what we would want. They did a really neat thing. It's kind of captured right here where they set up a Pinterest account. I don't know how many of you pinned, but I didn't really pin until this. So they gave us our own private account where everybody on the team could find images that say, oh, yeah, that would be cool, or I like that, or this is a really neat reading spot, or this is a really neat teaching environment. And we just pinned all these visual ideas, because when you're dealing with architecture, it's obviously easier to talk in visual pictures than it is sometimes in language. So they created that environment, which they were able to then start to capture and use some of that as feedback and conversation for us. And then we get to this point here with the Huckabee synthesis session. So up to this point, we captured kind of some data. We'd met with all the department heads and grade levels. We'd gone on tours. They had visited the site. We had our kickoff engagement. And then we had kind of this really compact series of events here that started with this synthesis piece. I'm going to let Rebecca talk about that in 1 second, and we're going to roll some video. So what you're going to see is we're going to show you a time lapse of what Huckabee did in their office one day to try to work through all this information. And then Rebecca's going to speak to that. And then right after that, you're going to hear from some of the kids that we interviewed in this process. So I'm going to go ahead and start that, and Rebecca can talk for just a minute.
So this is just a time lapse of half of the day, actually. We didn't show you the other half because it's a lot. But it's just an example of the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, because you're going to see all the people that trickle in throughout the day. And it was really an opportunity for us to come together and think about this project as more than just a building, and actually think of you guys as people and all of the challenges that you face and all of the things that we had heard, and how we could potentially bring solutions to the table that address those things. Beyond, again, just the walls and the things that we were going to be designing for you. So it was a big brainstorming day, lots of hours spent, and lots of people trickling in and out.
Do you prefer to learn on this? Do you have any couches or any furniture like that in your classrooms right now?
No, we use for chairs. We have balls. We have little benches. We have regular chairs. And that's it.
Do you like that?
Yes, I got a ball, so
Is that what you prefer out of all choices?
yes.
What did you say next? A picnic area and a working area?
Yeah.
Is that mostly just to eat at? Like during lunch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Recess.
Okay. And what about for learning? Would you like an outdoor space to actually go learn with your class?
Yeah. Turkey, and we eat turkey. Is why we order really good. And we said,
So you want a variety of stuff in there when you're doing school? Do you prefer to work by yourself or in groups? An activity room?
Yes. And there should also be little experiment rooms, like in the class, you can when they learn it, it's in the experiment room. They have a table and there's all sorts of experiments in there. And also I'll make like the art room and the music room, like a little more bigger.
Are they too small right now? Or?
Yeah, they're kind of small. So every floor has chairs and an elevator.
This is the Gates group at Justin Elementary School presenting their design concepts. And then the STEM students at Northwest, they do School of Future Design as part of their curriculum. So we went back and talked to them about some of the things they've learned during their process.
The big open space for a variety of projects and just a lot of group activities, and all teachers come together and have just random games, whether educational or just for the kids enjoyment. I thought that was really cool.
I second that. I really like the idea of just having like an open area where you can just, it's kind of like a study place where you can just sit and think. It's fun to do. For an elementary, they be together in class in a big open space where they can kind of work together. I like the idea of it.
Yeah, me too. Just the fact that they have a place to work together will encourage more group design thinking.
Me personally, I feel like elementary school need to have a spaced out classroom, because I don't really think that having desks and being in rows was enough to them to learn. Because I want them to actually physically be able to do things like we're doing STEM, EBL projects, and like we're barely in desks. Like we're always moving around, like creating posters, going out, creating wood and cutting wood to build all that stuff. So I want for elementary schools to be not to have like completely vestless, but like a lot of open space and basically a lot more technology. I want them to do a lot more projects. Because back when I was in elementary school, we really didn't do that many projects like that. We just basically were like English, learning how to write. So I just want to start. I feel like it would be better for them to start at an early age, like PBL projects. Not too hard what we're doing, but like just start at an early age. Because they will develop really easy over the years. Having projects with different grade groups, 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade, it can really help them because the younger kids can learn from the older kids and they can start out improving their skills and knowledge and have even more increase their maturity level while working on projects and know what the core things to do while also having fun at the same time. I went to Camp Convention in the summer, and I worked with these other kids from 1st grade to 5th grade, and I've never seen that small age group thing. It's just legit people, like their mom building these a snowball machine out of recycled materials, and they come up with the best ideas. That's what really turned my mind. Like, and these are 3rd graders and 2nd graders, and I'm like, wow. So that's proof right there that anybody, no matter what age group, you can do whatever you want. Like if you put your mind to it. Because 3rd graders are doing better ideas than the 5th and 6th graders, and I'm like, that's crazy.
So what I take away from all that, I mean, there's a lot of great comments, and of course this is 3 or 4 minutes of whittled down data that was absorbed, was just that they all were talking about dynamic experiences. They were all talking about engaging experiences. And so that's what kind of feeds the conversation. The one little girl you saw up there, this is her plan here. She had a very, I mean, from an architectural and engineering standpoint, just an incredibly produced plan. Her name's Zeta. She's here. Zeta, will you stand up and wave? There's Zeta. Zeta, I'll tell you, had everything from a storm shelter to understanding how the furniture worked. Mr. Schluter, she had an engineering key, like to tell what each component of the drawing was. And the remarkable thing about it was, this was a group of Gates students at Justin that I had met with the previous year, back in the spring of last year. She was not part of that group. And so when we engaged them again and said, hey, if you still have your drawings and work that you did last spring, bring it back up because we want to talk to you some more about it. She actually heard the project and said, I didn't do it last year, but I want to do it in 3 days, right? 2 days, sorry. Sorry, thank you, Zeta, for setting me straight. 2 days, she came with a full trifold poster board, beautifully drawn drawings, and a wonderful
Safety
story.
done.
A safety done.
And the safety school, yeah, that's what her theme was, the safety school. But wonderful story to tell, and so really enjoyed hearing from her, as well as we did about the water school and all the other wonderful schools that the Gates students produce. So we continue on, the Huckabee did their design synthesis. We continue to meet with the STEM students. We went and observed some PLC observations, so we could have an understanding, and Huckabee and design teams have an understanding of how PLC should operate when those teachers are getting together and collaborating, and did some interviews with a teacher from each grade level as well. So that kind of accumulates until you get to Design Strategy 2 or Design Strategy Charrette 2, which is here. We met out at the OLC. We really started talking about learning environments and concepts and how components go together, whether you want a wing of classrooms or you want 2 classrooms together or 4 classrooms together, and trying to figure out what that relationship looked like as a whole. So we went through that. Then we move on to Design Strategy 3. This is where it got pretty interesting because they asked us to actually draw our concept. They did no way compete, Zeta, with what you drew, what the administrators drew, okay? But we came up with some concepts and some relationships and some thoughts about, okay, everything we've discussed, here's kind of where we are. Here's Dr. Thornell on the ground. He was the overachiever. I think he drew 2 plans, right? Right. He drew twice.
Neither one of them is good at
And then we move on to kind of the last design strategy where we're really working through relationships. We've got kind of some bubble diagrams there that talk about what major components of the building should be near each other, what should be adjacent, how those things should function. We should really start to set that framework. All this is done in the intent to produce this document here, and this is just a portion of the document. But what we have is a program of spaces identified that should be in the school with square footages. That's pretty standard for any architectural building. And then we have this design brief where you see these bubble diagrams of relationships, and you see these smaller bubble diagrams of what should relate to what. And this really becomes the design Bible for the Huckabee Group and their consultants to say, this is the culmination of everything that we've done. So that landed us to the design charrette, where we now start taking the site, we start taking all these components, and we put them together and overlay them, and we start to play with the pieces. We're not at the micro level, we're at the macro level. We're saying we know we need a classroom wing with X number of classrooms, we know we need a gym, we know we need elementary school entrance and a bus entrance and all these different things, and we start to play with that in block format on here. And Huckabee came here, set up basically in this room right here for 2 days. Our group came in and out. We had actually a presentation on the end of the second day where we invited anybody who participated in this process down here in the grade to come back and see what we produced. And so that's kind of what you see here at the end, where we're all huddled over these drawings and sketches and outlines and overlays, and then here's that group meeting where we presented back to all the stakeholders, all 199 stakeholders that were in this process. We presented back where we were, kind of where we pushed the pause button, which is today. And so the big reveal, drum roll, right, and all that. We're going to turn these boards around, and really what I'll show you is what the product of all this is. Not that this is really something that I would encourage us to critique at this point. This is really, tonight's about showing you that we went through an enormous amount of planning, an enormous amount of engagement to get to this. Happy to take questions on any and all of it. Happy to hear from any participants as well. We can go through. But we start to look at the site overlay and the plan. And what you'll see here is the site plan. You'll see a first floor plan, a second floor plan, and then the rendering, kind of the model, the 3D model. And then you see some images, some precedent images pointing to different spaces. And these are the kind of things that came out of that discussion, was here's what we're looking for, here's the feel we want, here's how we want it to sit in with the community and take on the material components of the right feel for the harvest community, and really start to engage that component. I'll point out a couple of quick things, and then I'll stop because I told y'all 15 to 20 minutes and I'm right at 17. A couple of unique things to talk about. One, the purple areas you see in the classroom wings, those are the collaboration spaces that pretty much have complete access to every classroom in that wing. So you can bring out 2 or 3 or 4 groups of classrooms in that area. We intend to be able to have areas where they can produce out there, present out there, that to be their kind of collaboration spaces. There's also some focus rooms. They're kind of hard to probably see where you are, but they're at the end here. This is where a small group can go and focus. Completely glazed, you have full transparency to see what's going on in there, but a small group could break out over in the corner and work on some things, and they'll have marker board walls, and they can draw and work through whatever project they're working on. In the core of these wings, you have your PLC rooms for your teachers. Those were specific to put right at the front to kind of see most of the time, and Rob, please correct me if I say something out of line when it comes to curriculum, but your PLC groups are usually meeting when the kids are off doing other stuff. They're collaborating on what needs to happen. So they're there at the kind of the threshold of that entry space to see if any students come back and forth. They're, again, another glazed area. We designed these to be able to be closed off at the neck, so you can close off an entire wing for lockdown purposes. But the other key things, a couple really big key things, we wanted plenty of outdoor space. So all these areas, if you look to the second floor, they all have outdoor patios on the second floor covered. First floor as well, outdoor patios for each of the learning communities is the name we started giving them. That was important to be able to have that space to go out to and do some schoolwork there. The real heart of the building becomes a library. That's this piece here. So you come in off the entrance. Once you clear through your security checkpoints like we do at every school coming into the administrative suite, really you're right on center with the library. And what we talk about is that's a very open concept. We want that to be a concept, and when I mean open, it's open. It's inviting. It's not walls. It's not doors. It's a place you can come and go from all aspects. There's a maker space that's presented there off the library. There's some more of these focus rooms off the library. And then it becomes this double volume space so that as you're on the second floor, you kind of circle around a balcony that kind of looks down on it, and then you come down here. The gym down to the far end, one of the things you may remember me talking about in the past is we're moving towards an era of having shelters being required by code. And so we've pulled that gym off to make that the shelter that has the capacity to hold every occupant in the school in case of an inclement weather event. So that's why that kind of gets separated. We have art and music spaces. Music that both classrooms go right onto the stage. The stage is in the cafeteria. And then the art rooms have an art patio just off of their classroom space as well to utilize. Neat component with the cafeteria setting with the stage is now this walkway, the second floor walkway balcony looks down, starts to allow us to have some balcony seating, if you will. So when you're doing those events that crowd the gyms, we can now go up to the second level, have a little bit of balcony seating up there to be able to make up for that loss of gym space, because traditionally in the last several schools that we've done prototypes, we've had the gym and cafeteria together, so you get that really big opening. With the storm shelters coming in, that's really limiting our ability to do that. So we said, well, let's capture back some of that second story space to look down on those presentations being performed there on the stage and in the cafeteria area.
I call this meeting of the Northwest Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that the notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. We will now adjourn into executive session. Good evening, everybody. Sorry we're running a little late tonight. We had a great new elementary design workshop. Now we're going to open our regular meeting. If you would, please rise for the invocation and pledge. Dr. Warren?
As Mr. Schluter said, thanks for everybody for being here tonight. If you feel comfortable doing so, please pray with me. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day. And Lord, just thank you for allowing us just to be a part of this school district. We ask that you be with our board members tonight, be with everyone in attendance tonight, Lord, and see us safely home. And above all things else, Lord, just be with our children. Give them your love, your guidance, your protection to all of our kids. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, folks, we have three very special guests from Hazlitt Elementary School. All right, Max, wave at everybody. Guys, this is Max Smiley. He is from Hazlitt. Ron and Mandy, are you here? Mandy, good to see you. Thank you for coming. Max, favorite subject is math. Way to go, Max. He also likes football and video games, and he is the student council vice president and the secretary. And Mrs. Weber says he's always respectful and kind to others. Is Mrs. Weber here? There we go. Well, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming. Max, thank you. Thank you for being here. Alexa Bland-Hurst. Wave at everybody, Alexa. Thank you for being here. Jordan, Josh, are y'all here? Oh, good to see you guys. Thank you for being here. Alexa loves reading. Great job. I enjoy coloring and crafting, also horseback riding. Very good. Mrs. Weber says she is also the Stuco vice president, and she's the treasurer. She is a leader who is very involved and always looks for ways to help others. Great job, Alexa. Very glad you're here. And last but not least, Ariel Cravens. Wave at everybody, Ariel. Michael and Brandy, you guys here? Good to see you. Thank you for coming. Ariel's favorite subject is music and lunch. Good job, Ariel. A girl after my own heart. Good job. She says, I enjoy horseback riding and playing with my brothers. And Mrs. Weber said, Ariel is the Stuco president at Hazlitt. She is a great leader and always asks, how can I help? Guys, thank you for being here. If you will lead us in the pledges, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Great job. Now, y'all stay right there. We got a little present for you.
Yes, okay. Well, it's had such amazing kids.
Absolutely.
Brings us down to item number 6, which is recognitions. Dr. Warren.
Mrs. Conklin, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to invite Phil Beckman, our Partners in Education Specialist, to the front to help us recognize our new partners.
And if Board President Mark Schluter and Dr. Warren would please join him. Join Emily. Tonight, Partners in Education is pleased to recognize 3 business partners. Partners, as I call your name, please come forward to receive your plaque and have your pictures made. First, here tonight from Community Med Urgent Care and Family Care is Sherry Larkin. Community Med has already been working with Prairie View Elementary and Eaton High School and is very interested in our Adopt a School and Employee Perks programs. Please join me in welcoming Community Med Urgent Care and Family Care as an official Northwest ISD Partner in Education. Here tonight from Fast Signs Alliance is Sam Leopard. Fast Signs has been working with us through the marketing and advertising program and sponsors signage for the Northwest ISD Education Foundation. In addition, Fast Signs is collaborating with CTE to have a Creative Media Production Academy student intern at Fast Signs Alliance. Please join me in welcoming Fast Signs Alliance as an official Northwest ISD Partner in Education. Here tonight from ABM are Diane Coleman, Kelly Lewis, and Jason Morgan. ABM was a sponsor of the Neff Golf Tournament last month and is very interested in being an Adopt a School partner. Please join me in welcoming ABM as an official Northwest ISD Partner in Education. And I believe that concludes our recognition.
That moves us down to public participation. We do have two folks that have identified that they wanted to speak. I need to read the public participation statement before we get started. Public participation is an opportunity for the public to address the board on any matter, whether or not it's on the agenda. The board may place reasonable constraints on the number, length, and frequency of presentations, so long as it does not unfairly discriminate among speakers based on their viewpoint. 30 minutes are allotted for public participation. People who wish to speak must sign up and complete a request to speak form before the meeting begins. Each presentation is limited to 3 minutes. Groups of more than 5 people shall appoint one person to speak for the group. Speakers should refrain from mentioning by name any employee or student about whom they are complaining. So the board may not deliberate or take action on a presentation about an item not on the agenda. So the first person that I have to speak is Mr. Daniel Bennett. If you would come forward and state your name and address for the record, please. Yes, sir.
Daniel Bennett, 408 Pemberton, White Settlement, Texas. President Schlute and Superintendent Warren and trustees, good evening. I'm here because I am a nominee for Tarrant Appraisal District. And I think I've sent all of you kind of an informational description of my priorities. As I've traveled through Tarrant County to Keller ISD, I was at HEB tonight before I came here. It's amazing how hard the school districts work. I didn't realize how many wonderful kids are out there, because when I was at Keller the other night, they were giving out some rock star award. And I thought to myself, that is something we all should aspire to. I did not ask for this nomination. My city nominated me and called me the next day and asked me if I would accept the nomination. I did. I've done countless hours of work on Tarrant County Appraisal District. I share constantly with my council, and they thought I was duly qualified to sit on the board of directors. Personally, from what I've discovered, is TAD lacks the transparency and accountability and the diligence. Somehow that has moved away from the role of servant to where these entities are struggling and have to ask questions to get answers. Those questions should be readily available and given, and should be there at all times. I know the computer issue, something they're rectifying, and they're getting a lot better. But those are mistakes in the past. But the thing is, they're still making mistakes. And they're not transparent on the mistakes they are making. I actually went to Alton City the other day and spoke to the assistant city manager, and there's stuff on his books he doesn't even understand. They can't get answers. I don't know if you've experienced that. You're in a unique situation where you have 3 appraisal districts. And I don't know if you get the same type of service from each district. But I think that TAD needs to step up and be more of a servant than having things done to them and then not giving the vital information you need to set your budgets, to administer your levies. The children and the teachers of the school district demand service from TAD just like you provide the leadership to them. I see how hard your board tonight, after speaking just briefly with a few of you, how much you care. TAD should have that same empathy and that same caring attitude for every entity, and they don't. I stand tonight as a nominee. I'm not sure if you're used to having a nominee for TAD come up here, but if I'm a director, I will be back, and that's my pledge to you. And I hope for your consideration. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. The next person that is signed up is Mr. William Haber. If you would, please come forward, state your name and your address for the record, please. And don't be nervous.
William Favor at 12065 Rachel Lee Lane in Fort Worth. First of all, thank you, President Schluter, Vice President Kopp, and Dr. Warren for this opportunity, allowing me to speak. I'd like to thank the rest of the Board of Directors for all the work that you've put into our school district. And I'd like to thank everybody else for attending, whether it's your first time, like me, attending one of these, or whether you attend these regularly. Me and two of my friends are here because our U.S. government class is requiring us to do a project involving a civil involvement. And I decided, rather than sitting through what may otherwise seem as an uninteresting meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to address the board. I simply wrote down for my topic of speech as goals. With many of these opportunities I could have taken to speak, many different ways I could have taken this, I would not like to say what goals we should strive to achieve. I would like to thank you for each and every goal that y'all have achieved. Sitting in here watching the slides run through, I saw about 5 goals, some of which included NISD will communicate in a timely, open manner and engage parents and community members in positive partnership opportunities in our schools. I cannot tell you the involvement. I forgot to say that I am a senior of the first graduating class of VR Eaton High School. And I would like to say, what better way to gauge the success of these goals, which y'all have set, than by receiving feedback from a student being put through your very program. I'd like to say, I don't have enough time to read through all of these goals, but reading through each one, I realized that not only have these goals been met by our school district and each school within our district, but they've been exceeded, not only having motivated teachers, but teachers that go out of their way to make sure that students are prepared, not just for the AP exam or the test coming up next week, but also for the various life skills and for the workplace or secondary education following high school. So with, I know I had very little time. This is where I'd like to thank Antonio Banos for giving me the ability to speak on my feet. He was a teacher at the Business Management Entrepreneurship Academy, which I'm also a senior in I've been there 3 years now. He would call us up and give us a product, and in less than 3 minutes we had to sell it to the whole class. So yeah, good preparation right there, and thank y'all very much for what y'all done.
Bubba, you can come back anytime.
I was going to say, you've got 3 minutes each and every meeting. So. Nicely said. Board, that moves us down to consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. President,
Ms. Kopp?
I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
A motion has been made by Ms. Kopp, seconded by Mr. Wright. All those in favor? Motion carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay.
Thank you, Board.
Moves us down to item number 9. Discussion action. Did I miss one?
Nope. You're good.
Good. Under A, it's consider adoption of an order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refund bonding, establishing sale parameters, authorizing the execution of a board purchase contract, and an escrow agreement approving an official statement and enacting other provisions related to this subject. Dr. Warren.
Board, the information on our refunding proposal begins on page 35 in your packet. John has done a great job working with our financial advisors to identify this opportunity. Mr. Grasswich, please.
Yes, your All Aggie financial team is here tonight.
All right.
I appreciate that, Mark. Jeff Goldis with McCall Parkhurst is bond counsel. Jeff Robert with First Southwest, financial advisor. Essentially what we have here is something that we've been looking at for a while. We decided to expedite it. We had been thinking about doing it in May, but because of the tax legislation that's in Washington would forbid an advance refunding as it currently stands. It hasn't been passed, but that's what they're proposing effective January 1. We went ahead and moved it up to November in order to take advantage of the savings that are there for the district. Jeff Roberts prepared information on it showing that essentially we would save about $4 million gross, about $2 million net present value. We have had a number, 5 refundings and 1 defeasance that have saved the district so far, $78 million in interest payments from 2015. Essentially, this will be what's called a parameter order, in that you will authorize the superintendent or myself to execute the bond sale if certain conditions are met. Those conditions include a maximum principal amount of $30,290,000, a minimum savings threshold of 5% of present value, a maximum of true interest cost of 3.75%, final maturity date of February 15th, 2037, and this parameter authority will be good for 180 days, but based on, of course, the tax legislation, we intend to execute it fairly quickly. We've been very fortunate also, I'm going to point out that the rise in the federal funds rates has caused the short end of the curve to come up, whereas the long end has stayed fairly flat. So essentially this will help us generate extra savings. So the movements in the Fed and the marketplace are very advantageous to us to do this now. We're going to use BOK Securities as the senior manager. We used them in the past, and then they'll be assisted by RBC and Raymond James as our underwriting team. This is our standard underwriting team. We expect that it will be rated AAA because it will qualify for the permanent school fund, and of course we have our underlying AA ratings with Fitch and Moody's. I included in there, if you're curious, some information that you might want to review on your own time, which is the bond ratings, credit opinions on what constitute credit strengths, credit weaknesses, and the outlook from Moody's Investor Services, just to show how those underlying ratings are calculated and obtained. Ask you to go ahead and approve the parameter order for tonight. Me and the team are here, happy to answer any questions.
Board members?
Board, after your questions, we're going to recommend approval.
Mr. President.
Mr. Wright.
Move to approve the adoption of an order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refunding bonds, establishing sale parameters, authorizing the execution of the bond purchase contract and an escrow agreement, approving an official statement, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject as recommended by the administration.
Second.
A motion has been made by Mr. Wright, seconded by Dr. Roush. Is there any further discussion on this item? I'm going to make John do a finance bond rating for dummies at some point in time. So if there's no other discussion, all those in favor? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Good job, John.
Under 9V is discuss and consider adoption of the TASB Culture of Voting Resolution, encouraging NISD to create a culture of voting to encourage employees to exercise their right to vote. Dr. Warren.
Board information on this begins on 82 in your packet. The actual resolution is on page 83, and let me just quote a couple of the therefores. If you approve this, that the Board of Trustees of Northwest ISD supports a culture of voting and seeks to encourage maximum participation by district employees and eligible students in the elections process, and that the Board of Trustees authorizes the administration to take steps necessary to ensure maximum participation. So, Board, we've discussed this last board meeting. We really just want to promote good voting habits in the district. We want to create a culture of that, and TASB has taken the lead in that, and I think people will look at our Northwest ISD School Board as being leaders in the communities to promote good voting habits. Mr. Wright, anything to add to that?
I think this is a great way to show civic engagement, like these young gentlemen coming here tonight and showing they were engaged. Just another part of it. I think this is a very positive resolution.
Board, I recommend approval.
Hey, Mr. President,
Mr. Sproles?
I'll move to approve the culture voting resolution as recommended by the administration.
Second.
A motion has been made by Mr. Sproles, seconded by Dr. Simpson. Any further discussion on this item? I say we vote then. All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Thank you. Wow.
9C. See, these guys thought it'd be a boring meeting. It's exciting. 9C, possible casting of votes for the Denton County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Dr. Warren.
All right, Board, you have all 3 counties to consider tonight. The first one up is Denton Central Appraisal District. From the last board meeting, you have a recommendation from Board Member Wright to support Mr. David Terry. Is that correct, Josh?
Yes, sir.
This is completely your pleasure on casting. You have 282 votes for Denton County.
Can we add another name to that tonight?
This is completely your pleasure.
Okay, I would like to add Roy Atwood to that, please.
Did you say Ray or Rory?
Roy.
Roy or?
R-O-Y.
Okay.
Right.
So I guess my question is, how do we proceed?
You can do several things. You can divide the votes among the 2. You can divide them by the 7 that have applied. You can vote to name all 282 for one candidate. You have the discretion to divide the votes as you see fit. It would just take a motion.
As a board.
As a board.
Hey, Dr. Ross, could you tell us more about Mr. Atwood?
He came highly recommended by a family member for his activities in the community and experience.
Okay, so
I didn't have my speaker on. Did you hear me?
Okay. So in the form of a motion, if you want to consider 2, the first person that makes the motion, whether you split it or say 1, then we'll vote on that motion. If it fails, then we go to the second motion.
God bless you.
Okay, Mr. President, I make a motion to split the votes, 282 evenly. That would be 141 votes apiece for Mr. Atwood and for Mr. Terry. And I make a motion to approve a resolution casting votes for the Denton Central Appraisal District Board of Directors, 141 votes for Mr. Terry, 141 votes for Mr. Atwood.
Do we second that, or do we discuss it?
You would second it, and then we would discuss it.
Okay, I second.
All right, a motion has been made by Mr. Wright, seconded by Dr. Roush. Is there any further discussion on this item? You seem like you wanted to discuss it, but we don't have to. All those in favor? Those opposed, motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, possible casting of votes for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors. And I will say that I've never seen anybody from TAD come here to talk to the board. I've been here for many years, so.
Board, if you will go to page 104 in your packet, there is your list of TAD candidates. You do have Mr. Daniel Bennett here before you tonight. I will make an announcement that we received an email stating that Mr. Belmontes has asked that his name be withdrawn from contention. So that person has withdrawn. So that will be your list minus Mr. Belmontes. And you have 118 votes to cast at your leisure.
Mr. President, I have to say, along with you, of course, I haven't been here as long, but never seen a TAD director appear before. So after hearing what Mr. Bennett had to say and looking at his email, I'd be willing to make a motion to approve casting our votes for Mr. Bennett. So I would like to make a motion to approve a resolution casting votes for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors for Mr. Daniel Bennett.
Second.
A motion has been made by Mr. Wright, seconded by Ms. Kopp for the motion as read. Any further discussion on this item?
Mr. President, can I ask Mr. Bennett a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Bennett, I was just curious. You mentioned you've worked for the TAD for many years. I was sure what in capacity?
Oh, sir, I've never worked for TAD. I've never held any office.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you did some work.
I must have misstated. I said I've done over 200 hours of open records requests for TAD.
I got you. Okay. Okay,
That's what
thank
I
you.
have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Bennett.
No, sir. Sorry. Moving down to 9E, possible casting of votes for Wise County Appraisal District Board of Directors.
Board, on page 108 in your packet, you have 5 candidates for Wise County: Ray Cook Jr., Kyle Irwin, Mike Hurd, Jerry Joyner, and Bill Lewis. We have had really no feedback. Angela, no feedback from any of the 5 candidates from Wise County. Is that correct? So this is your pleasure if you know any of these individuals. You have 532 votes. 5.
Bunch.
You can divide all the votes between them, and you can 1 or 2. I mean, you can truly. You have the discretion to do what you feel is appropriate.
Does anybody know anything about any of them?
No, sir, I do not. Okay. So while we encourage voting, we also encourage knowledgeable voting. So it's kind of hard to vote on someone when you don't know anybody to vote on. So
and you can pass.
Sure can.
Okay.
No.
You just table it.
Okay, since we have no motion, we're moving on to F, which is the naming of the facilities for elementary school number 18. Dr. Warren?
Board, very exciting report by Mrs. Conklin. Emily has done a wonderful job working with the naming committee. This will be a discussion item this month. We will bring this back to you for the December board meeting for the final approval. Mrs. Conklin, please.
Yes, this is a very fun committee to facilitate, so I think you'll be excited when you take a look at this report tonight. Of course, it does follow goal 3 and 4 of our strategic goals in support of communications, as we do involve the community in this process of naming, and then our facilities. So you'll see on the screen the criteria that we follow. These are the 4 categories that fall along, aligning with policy CW local for buildings kindergarten through 8. And this was the timeline. If you remember back in September, we did have it open for about a month, a 4-week period, to which we received many different nominations. I'll have that exact number on the next slide. And then we met with our naming committee at the end of October. And then here we are tonight presenting to you for discussion. These are the following ways that we communicated the call for recommendations. We also had an electronic and paper form. Oops, and this is in here twice. Just a reminder in case you forgot what was on the first one. So, and then we received exactly 53 name submissions, and this was just during this time period. So from the 18th of September to the 13th of October, we received 53. Now we do keep if someone had submitted a name previously and it did meet the criteria, we do keep that as well, and we refer back to that when the committee meets. 26 names met the criteria established in local policy CW, and that was from those 53 submitted names. And this is our process. So we meet to look at the eligibility of the name submissions. It is an internal committee. Board policy states that our committee will submit 1 recommended name, and we have a list of qualified names just from this cycle that are included for your review. And so based on the feedback from our recommendations, we're bringing forth Lizzie Curtis Elementary School for you tonight. I'm looking at your faces to see if it looks familiar to anyone. So this is, as far as I can remember, this is my 10th year in the school district, but this is our latest or earliest time frame for someone that we've named a school or presented to name after. But her date of birth, 1854 to 1935. Her formal name, she went by Miss Alice Elizabeth Curtis, and she was known by Lizzie in the community. She was, back in the 1870s, the first teacher at Blue Mound School, and that was later known as Haslett, and then taught school in the home of the Haslett community. So we've received a lot of different information about her through the submissions. This isn't the first time that her name has come to us as a submission. The internal committee spoke a lot about, the fact that she was a Haslett resident, and that is where this school is being situated in that area. That went into a large part of why the committee looked at that name so closely. So, and then we hope to come back in December for your approval. So, if you have any questions at this time.
I just think this is really cool, looking at the supporting documents and the letters and the history of Haslett and stuff, and you can find a lot of this stuff in the Haslett Library. I think it's a very unique way to honor our history. And especially, as you said, given the location of where the school is going to be.
Right. We have done a little bit more research as well, which has been neat to do. We've talked with the city of Haslett, the town administrator over there. We've talked with them, Bob Golden's assistant over there. She spoke with someone who's lived in Haslett for a very, very long time. I believe she's 97 years old. So she was trying to remember back. So it's been neat to go back through the history of that. And then we've also reached out to Tarrant County Archives to look for any more information. So we do have an idea of posting after this meeting, and depending on what your thoughts are, of posting a call out to our community if they have any more information about the family to get back in touch with us. So.
Have you found anyone that's related or part of her family?
We're having trouble with that. Okay. That's what we were going to extend an invitation to our community for that. So okay. I think it's just the time frame. We haven't named a school that's gone back that far. So
it was a fascinating history.
It really was.
It really
yeah.
was fascinating.
And this is just discussion, so we'll come back.
Anyone else? That is great history. Contrary to what Dr. Warren said, she was not my elementary school teacher. Anything else? Thank you, Emily.
Okay, thank you.
I'll ask your wife. I bet she'll tell you the truth.
Moving down to number 10, reports. Facilities Planning and Construction Monthly Report. Dr. Warren?
Boy, Sarah, do you have it tonight? All right. A lot of exciting things going on, and Tim and, of course, Sarah are doing a phenomenal job leading us through these facilities. So, Sarah, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Tonight we will start with everything we're doing in construction, our project space as well as the planning projects that we're doing. As you can see, we are working on spending that bond money up there. The first project, it's been a while since I've given this report, so I just wanted to show you the picture I gave y'all the last time on the aerial, and then this is where we are today. And actually, it's further along. We have more brick on the outside, as you can see. And in the parking lot, we've got the HVAC units. And not this past weekend, but the weekend before, we had all the units helicoptered on to our building. As you can see in this picture, the units are all on. It's just a south view of the school, open courtyard, and here's the north view. And then you've got the athletic facilities to the side of the building. This is as far as we're going to go when it comes to the field until spring. We just feel that green grass invites visitors, and so we just want to wait and make sure we do that at the right time. This is inside the building, and in the academic area, you can see that there are some finishes going up in the building. We've got the stage right off the cafeteria. And this is a view from for the library. We have two staircases on either side of the library where the landing is kind of a congregation collaborative area. We'll have some seating areas for the kids, and this will be a view that they can look into the media area. This is the entry of the library. So we have the athletic field still going on. We're working on the baseball and softball fields for Northwest and Byron. As of today, we have turf going down on the baseball field here at Northwest, and turf has been delivered for the softball field at Byron and will be installed starting to be installed by the end of the week. So we are closing up on those projects, and they'll be done by next month. Just a few pictures
It's a softball field at Northwest. The previous one was baseball. And here we have the both softball to the right and then baseball on the left. So 18, elementary 18, we have a lot of stuff going on out there, a lot of site work, storm drains, utilities, about 80% when it comes to that. And then we've got 100% piers for the entire building and about 25% on grade beams. You can see the forms. Next project is the Beck Elementary 4-classroom addition that we have. This is the first time we've done ICF for a building, and so I just wanted to show you kind of up close and personal the walls and the structure that goes into those walls on the perimeter. We poured 2 walls this weekend, and then we're going to pour the other 2 walls tomorrow, where steel will start going out that deck this Thursday. Here's an overview of our planned projects. Hughes, we have the GC you guys approved earlier in the meeting, and then Mr. McClure presented the new prototype on where we are, the very exciting process that we have for that prototype. For Byron Nelson Addition, we've been meeting with departments, athletics, Dr. Myers, and just figuring out what their needs are for that school to accommodate them and their growth, as well as we have given the natatorium, we have the architect, and we're starting to plan for that and start tours to see which facilities are best suited for our district. And then we have at the bottom is we're going to do a partial roof and HVAC renovation at Prairie View and Hatfield, or Beck, it's supposed to be Hatfield, I'm sorry, not Beck. So here's the Hughes addition that we have in orange are the additions that we'll be building from December till the beginning of school. And then this is just an overview of our planned projects. Any questions? Thank you.
Moving on to B, under reports, Leo Adams Middle School colors and mascot. Dr. Warren.
Dr. Ferris has been working very hard in
We're going to tag team. That's all right. My better half. Thank you, board. Good evening, Dr. Warren. As Sarah and her team have been fast at putting brick and steel, I've been able to assist Ms. Weber in building culture. So it's been a lot of fun. We have something exciting to share with you tonight that kind of reflects some work that we've done this fall. I'm going to share a little bit of the overview of the protocol that we've used that was patterned after Eaton in the developing a mascot and the colors, and then Ms. Weber will give you a little bit about what she talked with in beginning to invest in the culture. As you know, the school is named Leo Adams Middle School, and so we started our process as the school began, really wanting to bring some students together and parents together that were nominated by the feeder campuses that would be building the culture and be attending there at Leo Adams. And so our real intent was not just to name a mascot and name the colors that the school would go by, but really to start to learn more about Leo Adams, learn about and revisit some of the naming, as we saw with elementary school earlier today, about the history so that we can start to capture that history as we build that culture, and really emphasize the importance of school culture and traditions. One of the unique tasks of opening a campus, as many of us in the room know, is you can't just adopt traditions from elsewhere. You have to bring them forward and let them start to take root. So these are some of our wonderful collaborators here. Do we have any students that came? No, we invited them and maybe past their bedtime tonight, but we had quite a few students that we bussed over and we fed them full of pizza, and then we went through some activities with them. And then later in the evening, we had parents that were not necessarily their parents, but we had parents that were nominated by the principals for the feeder campuses that were very involved with PTA primarily, but they were involved with their schools through watchdogs and different things of that fashion. So as they came in, we took them both through the same protocol. Again, we wanted them to begin to understand what culture and tradition looked like and what it could look like for Adams Middle School. One of the activities, as you see pictures here, is we have them do a chalk talk, which is a silent protocol. You cannot talk, which was a discipline for both groups, it turned out. But we really wanted them, you see the two question prompts there of what do you want your school to be like? And what do you want to be known for? What is it that we want Leo Adams to be known for? And so the students began really brainstorming and sharing ideas. Out of that, we wanted them to identify 2 to 3 possible school colors that would represent their campus. And we had a wide array. Really, the only guideline we gave them was nothing exotic, because exotic is expensive, and we were that blunt with them, that we wanted something that was very classical but very traditional, and we gave them a wide range. We spent a good bit of time explaining to them which colors they couldn't use because they had already been used, much like the mascots. And so again, the students went through brainstorming, sharing ideas, and beginning to really formulate what they wanted their campus to be known for. So this was a great opportunity for them to get to know one another, to start to connect names between campuses. And then when we turned to mascots, our desired goal for both committees was to have 2 to 3 possible school mascots. Could not repeat any other mascots that were already present in our district, so we shared a variety of those. But in doing much of this piece, you'll see in the top picture there is Janine Eaton, who is Leo Adams' daughter. And so she brought Roy, as she normally does, but they were there, and she shared very interesting stories about her dad. About his start in the district as it began to consolidate in the 50s, that he was the owner and operator for the Justin Lumber Mill, and just his activity and his interest. We felt like it was important for the students and parents to really have an understanding of who their school was named after. And so she had an unlimited amount of time and did a wonderful job sharing with both groups that you see there. Again, the parents came in, did a very similar activity where they began to generate the potential colors and mascots and their combinations. And then, interestingly enough, what we found was that there was a lot of repetition between the two that Ms. Weber will go over in a moment. But we wanted them to, the parents then reviewed the children's work from earlier in the day. They discussed any of the recommendations, and we gave any clarifications that were made, and then they were to add to that vote for the student vote. Did I go too far? You ready? I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Weber now, and she can kind of share a little bit about what she led the students through.
Good evening. I will say that the experience of working with both students and parents to determine the mascot and colors for Adams was an exciting and nerve-wracking experience both at the same time. And I will say, similar to these gentlemen who are here today from Eaton, I couldn't be more proud of our kids, because when you let them loose, I mean, they really produce some amazing work. And granted, this was with 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, but they didn't let me down. I will say that in the protocol, where it was completely silent, we had some kiddos who were very shy and quiet, and some kiddos who definitely had an opinion of what they wanted to see, but they all had an equal voice. They all had a marker. They all had space. They all had time to share what they wanted for their campus. I wanted to share with you just a few of the terms that the committees came up with when asked, what do you want to be known for at Leo Adams Middle School? And the top 5 words they came up with was excellence, kindness, honesty, leadership, and courage. That's what they want to be known for. And it was by and large, I mean, those were the top 5 all of our kiddos came up with. And I will say the 2 groups, and we have some of the parents here. You're a parent on that committee, right? I've run into many of them in the hallways of different schools or on the ball fields, and they all ask me, do you know what it is? And then I smiled and I said, yes, I've known for a month. And they asked me, what is it? And I say, I'm not going to tell you. So that's been fun. But the fascinating part has been that group of parents and the group of students are not related, but they both narrowed it down to the same 2 options. And we were choosing between maroon and navy. and Lions and Gators. Those were our choices. So we developed a Google form, like a little survey, and I was able to go out to Chisholm Trail Middle School and meet with 6th and 7th graders. I went to all the elementary campuses and met with their 5th graders. And thank goodness for Chromebooks. Everybody brought their Chromebook or their device, and they were able to vote, but they were able to put a name and a face of who I am and get to meet some of them. But we were able to get that voting done in a couple of days. And so, let's see. Our choices again were Lions, Gators, Navy, or Maroon. And the resounding choice was Lions, Leo Adams Lions, with a majority of 78% of students voting for Lions. And the school colors will be navy and white, with a majority of 59% of students. And I could not be happier. Do you have any questions? No, but I did want to mention that the brick on the exterior of the building is, in fact, Yankee brick. I don't know if anybody takes minutes of these things, but thank you, ma'am.
No questions? Great presentation. Always good to have a kid's input. Definitely. Appreciate you guys' hard work in putting all that together. That brings us down to item number 11, which is considering item removed from the consent agenda, and there was none. Next is the board president's report. I'm going to let you know I'm going to talk to Mr. Bennett later on. I was a little abrupt with him. I just was trying to tell him you couldn't speak, but never mind. I was a little rude, so I apologize for that. There is a team of 8 training, December the 4th at 5:30, an exciting evening with the board and anyone else that wants to participate. So hope it's on your calendar already. And we'll also be talking about the board vacancy and what to do and the options that we have. And you'd like to know what those are? Should we turn it over to our attorney, or would you like to know what those are?
For those interested, the board will take up. We already had a special board meeting called on the 4th, Monday the 4th, for our yearly team of 8 training. At the beginning of that meeting, before we actually go into the training, the board received a report from the school attorney tonight, just talking about what the Texas Education Code says about a board vacancy and what our own board policy says about that. Really, one of 2 directions the board can go, and when you go into a special session to get attorney advice, you can't vote within there. A decision cannot be made there. The decision has to be made in front of an open session in front of everyone. So that night, our expectation is that the board will decide either to stay with 6 board members for the remainder of this year up until the election in May, or the board may appoint someone from the community to serve as a board member until the May election. Whatever the board decides, there will be a May election for this position. So the decision that will be made on the 4th will be either to stay pat with 6, or to appoint the 7th board member who will remain in place until the May election. If that is done, if that's the choice of the board to appoint someone, then we will also discuss the process that we will go through, taking applications, how we will review applications, how the board will review applications, and then go into the final vote. Is that good for you, Mr. Schluter?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Warren.
Board, a couple of other things on my. Were you done on your?
I guess so.
So we have a couple of other things for me, board. December the 2nd, story times December 2nd, I will be at the Barnes & Noble in Southlake on the Saturday, December 2nd, reading to a group of kids at 11 o'clock. If you'd like to come by, it's a special way that is, we're partnering the Barnes & Noble. Emily is partnering with Neff to be able to put that on. The Reindeer Romp, which is always a great occasion, will be December the 9th at 8 a.m. And Coach Johnson, would you like to announce for Friday's schedule?
Friday's got a little playoff football, high district games. We've got two schools, 2 teams in. Byron Nelson will play Denton Geyer at College Stadium in Denton. Game will start at 7:30. And Eaton will play Sherman Friday also at 7:30 at Flower Mound
And if you need extra tickets, I have them. Just shoot Jennifer an email. I'll give them to her. She gives you how you want it.
So, Mr. Schluter, after you complete your report, I'm done.
Me too. Whoa, okay. I got Josh and Lillian.
Thank you, everybody.
Lillian.